part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, everybody. It is Adam the Bull. And yes, once again, I am not talking about sports. I just asked for questions when I started recording this podcast, and people started asking me sports questions, and I had to straighten them out. Instead, we're talking about television. It's Up Next with Adam the Bull, part of Press Play Pods. And on today's episode, we bring in the lovely and talented Holly Wetzel. She is with us. She, along with Tyvis Powell, do the Orange is Oranger podcast about the Browns. Holly, how are you? Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting. What's so funny about this, Bull, by the way, is that Tyvis and I were joking about back and forth about he was at the show, the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show with you.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, Bull, he's like, Holly, you should go on Bull's podcast. And I was like, Bull would never have me.
And I was offended. Why would I not want you on? The people I want on this show are people that are passionate about TV. Yeah. You're passionate about TV. Mm-hmm. Last week, I had my oldest friend who I've known since kindergarten, and he's another person who's very passionate about TV. So that's the people I want on. And so I'm happy to have you and excited to talk TV with you. And we got a lot of TV shows to get to. I mean, we are in the golden age of TV, right? I mean, there's so much content. Now, a lot of it's crap, but there's so much good stuff. And because there are so many different avenues of streaming and still over the air TV, that there's pressure to be good, right? Because, Netflix and Amazon and HBO and, all these other things, they've raised the bar for and there's still, what I look at as crappy TV on the networks. I think that a lot of the network shows are crappy, but a lot of those shows are still popular, but it's so different now than it used to be. It's so much better, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I listened to I've listened to your couple episodes that you've had so far. And your first one, you talked about like, you hate when people give people that love TV shit because and it's so true. Like I worked for Fox Networks, 21st Century Fox for 7 years. And doing that, part of my job was that we had to know what was on all of our networks that we were negotiating for carriage.
Sure.
And we would get screeners of all the different shows that were coming out. So we had to know. And that's how I fell in love with content, because content is king. It's priced that way. People are incredibly creative to make what they do. I think we take it for granted. And so I love that. I think you should pay for content. I think it's all of that, all of the above. So I agree. I'm like, I love TV.
Yeah. And screw you if you don't, if you're, some people are so snobby about it. Like, oh, you're wasting your time watching TV. No, I'm being entertained. That's good.
And I have like a million other things going on, and that's my escape. And I think that's what people don't get. So
that's 100% true. Life is stressful. We all have shit going on in our lives, like stressing us out, bumming us out. Work can be tough. You want to go home and, you shut off your brain. Now, some of these shows, you really got to keep your brain functional because they're tough, but I know, we'll get into some of the, you watch some of the reality shows. I mean, that stuff you could just shut off your brain and just enjoy 100%. In your own way. So, all right. So there's a lot to get to today, and let's begin. So I want to start with one show that you mentioned that you watch, and that's Succession, because on the first episode I talked about that's one of the two shows that everybody loves that I have not been able to get into. And I keep saying I'm going to try it again. I haven't done it yet. And I feel like because I'm doing this podcast, I need to. Now, my life's been crazy the last couple of weeks, and I've still watched a decent amount of TV, but I was finishing Snowfall and a couple other shows, so I haven't gotten into it yet. But you're yet another person, like most people, that love this show. Mm-hmm. First of all, talk to me about this last season that's going on right now. Has it lived up to expectations so far, in your opinion?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm actually, so I did hear when you said that you didn't like it. I'm like, I was shocked because I thought for sure that's something that would be up your alley.
Yeah.
I think so with Succession, I've heard a lot of rumors of what it's about or around, or I've heard that it's about the Murdoch family. I've heard a lot of different rumors about things, and I could see some similarities with it. And obviously it's totally just outlandishly more outplayed and drawn out. But I think what's so great about it, and I think you totally should go back and start it again, give it another chance. It has gotten better every season, and usually shows don't do that.
Yes.
And this season by far has, like, I know it's the last one, but it's fantastic. I mean, the writing alone, like I didn't know Will Ferrell is a producer on there.
Oh, interesting.
It's the writing alone, the banter back and forth, just the cinematography of it, and just like where the camera's shooting. Like, and I don't get into that part of it normally, but with this show, there's a reason behind every single move and shot and everything. It's so intricate. So, and I think it's funny as hell. There's some really great one-liners in there too.
Here was my beef with the show. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about like what didn't I like? Yeah,
why don't you like about it?
So my beef with the show, and you may think this is stupid. The guy who is the son that's supposed to take over in the first season.
Yeah.
What's that character's name again?
Kendall.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. He's been chomping at the bit to join this cover. He's like, yes.
There he is. I found him to be such a nitwit.
Yeah.
And so incompetent that I never believed that the father would ever have even considered giving him the company. And he didn't feel like a worthy foe for the dad. And for some reason, I couldn't get over that.
Well, and that's why you got to watch, because I think it's certainly posed that way. And he really is constantly just being a disappointment to his father.
Right.
And it's like his father thinking he thinking at any point that his dad might actually give the company over, and then being told that, no, I'm not, and I'm going to come back. And that's because that's when he had gotten sick and came back. He had like a heart attack or whatever he had at the time. But no, I mean, Michael, then you know, the second season, or the end of the first season, is when it's the second season when he blows up. So it's great. You have to, it's amazing because it does show like that type of family dynamic when you can never be good enough for your father.
Sure.
And then the siblings trying to comfort each other throughout it weirdly, but also still compete against each other. It's a really cool dynamic, but I think you stick with it because he does.
All right, I trust you. I mean, you are a guru of TV. When I was deciding whether I needed to go, like, cut the cord, you were my go-to person on that conversation.
Yeah.
So, all right, I enough people I trust, yourself included, have told me I got to watch it, and I think you finally put me over the top.
Okay.
So
good.
I think this week I'm going to go back. I watched, I think, the first 3 or 4 episodes, so I probably should watch them again and then just go for them. But I'm gonna go to the second season, and maybe this time it will grab me.
You should.
By the way, one thing that's of a local interest for most of the listeners who may be in Cleveland, not that everybody necessarily is, but Alan Ruck, who plays Connor, who of course a lot of people, if you're older, remember as Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He's from Parma. He went to Parma High School.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading something about him recently.
Well, probably because he made a cameo. Or I'm sorry.
Didn't they mention Cleveland?
Yes, in the latest episode.
All right, that was it.
So that's why. And that's his characters, him alone, if you like him, I do like him.
I do.
He's great. I mean, there's just a lot. I think that it's definitely, you would appreciate it. I think that's the biggest. Knowing you would appreciate it.
You're very enthusiastic, and
it's so good.
I'm gonna give it another try, and I will give you credit if I like it.
Good.
The only other show that was everybody loved that I never got into was Mad Men. Were you a Mad Men person?
Actually, funny. I know we're going to talk about some anti-heroes today.
Yeah, right.
And Don Hamm was one of my picks, but I loved his character. I didn't so much love the show. I think I did finish it all. I was not crazy about it like a lot of people either. Okay. So, but I did love his character. I loved him. So
yes. Okay. So you mentioned that later. We'll get to the top 5 list of anti-heroes. Got some fans for questions as well. So we'll get to all that. All right. Let's talk about another show you watched that I also watch, and I love this show. Probably my favorite, show that's on the air right now, and that's Yellowjackets.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting about this show is the first season. Well, I guess it's not interesting about the show. It's just something from my perspective. The first season I watched, my wife and I started it together. And in the first episode, you see parts of when they're like wearing all those weird costumes, and it could tell and my wife was like, I'm not watching this. I'm not watching this. And then like halfway through the first season, I was like, you have to come watch this. So I watched it again. But What's funny though is she loved it, and now she won't watch the second season. So at some point, I'm gonna have to talk her back into it.
Is she afraid because she doesn't think it's gonna be good, or what? She just hasn't.
No, I think she doesn't like when things get too creepy and gross.
Yeah,
and eventually we're getting creepy and gross.
Yeah,
I mean, we know that's coming at some point. I mean, it's already to some degree happened.
Yes.
In the second season, but it's going even further. We know that.
Yes.
Without giving away too much because the show's going on, but this show, the way they weave back and forth on the timeline, it's done so well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I love that about it.
Yeah.
And I love that they've added this year 2 more of the girls, now women.
Yep.
We've just saw what's her name?
Lottie? Is it? No, not Lottie. It's the
Lottie
other.
we've seen.
No, it's the other one that's with Lottie.
I can't think of her. Van, thank you. Michael's saving us with all the names. We've seen Van. That actress, I haven't looked it up yet, but the actress that's playing Van, I've seen her in something. I can't think of what it is. It's driving me crazy. But the fact that they got back together, but they saw each other for the first time. I don't know. It's really fascinating to see where it's going to go. But getting back to the way they weave the timeline, do you like the way they do that?
I do. Yeah, I think they do it well. Like you said, I think there's so many times in television and movies where they don't, and you almost can feel like you're getting lost a little bit. But I think they do a really good job. I thought the first season was awesome. It is starting to get on the way creepier side.
Yeah.
I mean, not to give away too many spoilers, but where they just had quite the feast. This was the last episode I watched. So yes.
Oh yeah, I think you're one behind. I think you're one behind because that. Yeah.
So the one after that, I'm sorry, I'm at. Yeah. I'm like midway through with the hangover and the whole thing. So
yeah, you're right.
It's certainly taking that darker turn, which I don't know what I was expecting. I think because the first season was setting so many other things up, so I liked that. So now we're really getting down into like what really went on in those woods.
Yes. Right. And it's going to be fascinating because in a way they've had to decide how many seasons they're going to do.
Yeah.
Right. Because they have to know that because eventually we know they get rescued and they have to decide, well, when are we going to see that happen? Because that's got to happen. I would assume that's got to happen in the last season. I feel like as good as this show is, and I'll give Succession credit to this. Some of these shows, they go too long.
Yep.
And I feel like this is a show that probably 3-4 seasons max, because you don't want to overdo it because you can't keep stretching it out too much. Mm-hmm. But I gotta say, I think Melanie Linsky, who's the main adult character.
Yep.
She's just a phenomenal actress. I feel like she's just come out of nowhere in like the last 5 years. She's been in a bunch of things. She was in The Last of Us for a couple episodes on that. Mm-hmm. She is awesome.
She's great.
And her transformation, like now she's such a badass. When she was so, in a way, she was kind of timid. And I don't know. She's a fascinating, great character. And she's a great actress, I think.
Yeah, no, I like her a lot. I think she's given, because you know what? She was also in the series that Jessica Biel did about the woman who she was having an affair with her best friend's husband, and then she ended up killing her in the kitchen.
I did not see that. It's not
HBO's putting it out. It's based on a true story. What the heck is her name? I was going to try to Jessica.
Look it up. Look it up.
Right now.
Yeah. By the way, Christina Ricci also on this show, who plays
Lottie. She's Lottie, right?
Yeah. No. Christina Ricci is not Lottie. Christina Ricci is the one who was like the manager for the team, who tries to poison the coach.
Yeah. Oh, so who was? Oh, I thought that her character's name was Lottie. I guess that's
no. But can't think of anybody's name right now. But anyway, Christina Ricci actually went to school with my wife. But her character's basically a serial killer.
Yeah.
I mean, she pretty much is a serial killer.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
She's just nuts, but she's again good character and done really well. So
it's Candy. The show it's the
I've never
Candy
seen that
was
show.
on Hulu. Oh boy,
Candy on Hulu. I gotta watch Candy.
Yeah. So it's based off a true story. It's a housewife from the 80s. She had like this picture perfect life, husband, kids.
Yeah.
And everything, and then she ends up having this affair, and she ends up murdering, and she basically gets off to a certain extent in real life. It's nuts, and she's still alive and the whole thing. Yeah. But so HBO's redoing it, but the series came out last year, so that should definitely check that out. But that Melanie Linsky's in that.
I don't know. I haven't even seen that one. I don't know. Okay, Candy. What's it on Hulu? You said.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of Hulu, I wasn't really thinking about this one, but did you see Welcome to Chippendales by any chance?
No, I did not watch that.
Okay, this is based on a true story about basically the rise and fall of the owner of Chippendales.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's a fascinating story. It was really well done. And the actor, of course, I'm not going to remember his name either, who leads anyway, I would highly recommend it. It's a really good show.
Okay.
Anyway, let's talk about another. Okay, so Rabbit Hole is with Kiefer Sutherland. I watched the first episode. I was like, I put it on hold for now. I'll think about going back. So you think it's worth diving into?
Yeah, I mean, I think with shows like that, it takes a little bit. Like I'm trying to get more. Like I like Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. I like
those.
I
like that show too.
I would say it's got similar vibes to that. I never watched 24, but I know that Kiefer Sutherland was the show.
Yeah.
So I think if people like him and liked him that show, they probably like this. It's taken some pretty good turns. I think it's a good solid watch. I wouldn't say it's like, oh my God, you have to see it type thing. I felt that way. Actually, I didn't include these. I watched the also on Paramount Plus, the Yellowstone and the Yellowstone spinoffs. I don't know if you watched any of those, but
it's funny. I loved Yellowstone. And this season, I stopped watching. I find the daughter so annoying. I can't take her. She's so
My mom
awful.
says the same thing. My mom's like, I can't watch it because of her
I can't watch her.
Yeah.
She's so for some reason, I know the stepbrother who turns out to be the stepbrother. I know he's kind of a schmuck, but she's so awful to him that it just, I don't know what about it. And plus, like, he went to the governor's mansion. I want to just hear about the ranch. I thought that was interesting. And I don't know. I feel like I should go back. I haven't watched the spinoffs.
The spinoffs, I almost think the spinoffs are better. Yeah. I think they've done the spinoffs fantastic. I didn't know if I was going to like them as much. But yeah, I think with Yellowstone and shows like that, they start to go away from what their roots were. Yes. And that's when you start to lose people. I just don't. Yellowstone was great because it was about the ranch and what's going on there.
Right. Like don't want him to become governor.
Yeah, it's him becoming governor and the whole thing that kind of took away from what he's there for and stuff. Right. So I'm with you there. But I think you would like the spinoffs a lot. I just watched the 1883 was good, but then I just watched the 1923, and that's with
Harrison Ford, right?
Yeah. And I thought it was fantastic. So
you mentioned Jack Ryan. Jack Ryan, what was the third season that was just out? I think it was. That's a very good show. He's great, John Krasinski, in that main role.
He made that transition, right? Yeah. From The Office. Did you watch The Office?
It was one of those shows that I never watched consistently, but I would watch it sometimes, and whenever it was on, like, I always enjoyed it, but I never, like, I don't know if I've seen every episode, but I've seen enough and I liked it. Yeah. And yes, it feels like in a way it's hard to believe, but he really pulls it off well.
Yeah. No, he does. He made that transition fantastic, which that's a really hard thing to do, especially with that show. But I like it. I'm like about halfway through this past season, but it's kept my interest. I like it. I mean, the one thing that I like about that, and not so much the rabbit hole, there's, you know how in shows like that there's a woman on Rabbit Hole that like kind of gets roped into the whole situation, and it's about this. Do you know the plot?
I do.
It?
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a woman that's involved in it, but basically she's kind of getting strung along with the whole thing. And you know how they try to bring humor into some of those situations?
Yeah.
She's very much that like typical, like, oh, you're doing this? Oh, like this very dramatic, but like not realistic response to things. I don't know how else to explain that. Like it doesn't feel real.
Yes.
Like the jokes they're trying to push through in certain scenes.
Not buying
it. So
all right.
That's one thing I don't like about it. And I think Jack Ryan does that well when they're trying to become kind of funny or make something lighthearted. So.
Yeah, it works. And I like, Michael Kelly is the guy who plays Mike November, and Wendell Pierce, James Greer, like his two guys he works with. Those guys are both. Well, Michael Kelly was in
House of Cards.
House of Cards. Thank you.
He's good in those roles.
He's really good at that, like, supporting character role. He's awesome. Yeah. And Wendell Pierce, of course, was in The Wire. which is, an all-time great show.
Yeah.
And he was really good in that too. All right, let me see. Okay, so let's talk about Last of Us for a minute. My wife loved this show, same as I did, but she was very angry with the way it ended. Did you see the whole thing?
I saw the whole thing.
She was very angry that he lied to her at the end about what he did.
Yeah.
Did you have a problem with that? It didn't bother me, but it pissed her off.
Yeah, I mean, so that show, first of all, by the way, one of your questions I think Chase asked from your previous episode was, what's like our show of like the 2020s?
Yeah.
I think the show is going to be the show of our.
It certainly could. Yeah. I think I said Ted Lasso was my answer, but I mean, I think The Last of Us could certainly become, the next Game of Thrones, whatever. I mean, it's on for a long time. Yeah.
And they already have, like, they're mapped out of how many seasons, like they have that all pretty much mapped out and everything. I feel like he could almost be an anti-hero, by the way, because sure. How much he cares about her.
Yeah.
And what he sees. Like, I don't know if you know, like HBO, by the way, at the end of every episode, I don't know if you watch these, but they go inside the episode.
I haven't watched them, but yes. Yeah.
I highly recommend doing that especially with Succession, when you are watching that, because that helps kind of explain a little bit of what and why they're doing what they are. But with that, it's like they talk about how in that scene at the end, the directors do, that they feel like she knows that he's lying.
Yes. Okay.
And it's not something that she's wanting to even go down that path right now. But they're saying that she knows deep down that he's not telling the truth.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I was mad about it. I expected him to, because he knows that she would have said, why didn't you let me die?
Right.
To save humanity.
Yeah.
So, and can't bring himself to even want to admit that that's what he just did. Right. I mean, so.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what I like, what to me is a positive. Most people probably don't give a shit about this, but to me, like, I hate when I watch a show and every woman on the show is like drop dead gorgeous. I'm like, that's not realistic, and it's like, to me, it's annoying. It's almost like our show's not good enough, so I'm going to put all these gorgeous women, because guys are so pitiful that they have to look at gorgeous women every minute of their life. And like, I like shows that just give me normal looking women.
Yeah.
And like, she's an odd looking, I know she's a teenager, but like, even on show, they'll put the hottest teenager. Like, she's just an odd looking kid.
Yeah.
And like, none of the women that were on the show were,
even his girlfriend, she wasn't, I didn't think she was anything special from that standpoint either. I mean,
and if you're in the apocalypse, like, everybody's going to be effed up and looking weird. So,
yeah. Nobody's showering.
Yeah, I know.
What is this?
So that's kind of good. The show was great. It really was. One other show I wanted to hit on, what that you mentioned you watched, was Your Honor, which is only 2 seasons. They've finished it. I mean, obviously Bryan Cranston is phenomenal, but the whole cast was really good. I think it was a very well done show. I really enjoyed it. Did you like the second season as much as the first season?
No, I thought the second season was great. I think the first season was so incredibly intense. Like, there's only been a few shows that really, like, literally made me physically uncomfortable watching, because it's so intense and I don't know how else to handle it. Was Your Honor and was The Last of Us when I first started watching it, because I was like, they put you through like that. The first episode of Your Honor with the car crash and everything is so intense. Like, so I feel like, and you didn't know what was going to happen each episode. The second season was certainly super powerful. I did like the first season better, but I thought it told its story. I think there was one point they didn't know if they were going to do a season 2, and I was like, they have to do a season 2 because how it ends.
Yeah.
I didn't love that the kid died. I didn't love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because I think there still could have been a great story told with him still alive. But I thought the acting was great. I liked who's plays the dad from the Mop family, because he was in Boardwalk Empire too.
Yeah, I don't know his name, the actor's name, but he's really good.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah. His wife was awesome.
Oh God, she is scary.
Super scary. And you know what? She's in Succession, which is nuts. And she plays
really?
Completely. So, and it's only this last season that she's in one of the other seasons, but she doesn't have a huge role or anything, but she's blonde and like it's just a whole different role. So it's funny. I almost didn't even like recognize her. I was like, wait, why do I know her No, I loved Your Honor. Again, it's one of those really like you can feel it in your bones show, some of those scenes.
Yeah. That's true. As you started describing the first episode, Your Honor, I was almost getting a little antsy and anxious because that show made you anxious.
Yes.
Watching it. I mean, the second season was really good. It was going to be impossible to be as good as the first season. There was no chance it could have been. Yep. But I think, considering the circumstances, it did as well as it could.
It did.
And I didn't see that coming. The stuff we found out about his wife and this, like how she died. I didn't see that stuff coming. I didn't even know that they were going to go down that road at all.
Yeah. I know.
That was really well done because I felt like that came out of left field. All right. I got to bust your chops about listen, everybody loves reality shows. You watch Vanderpump Rules and Love is Blind. Are those the only two you watch, or do you watch more?
No, I probably watch more. Well, so I watch all the Real Housewives. I didn't, and that's just something that I've watched Real Housewives from the beginning. Like I watched Orange County from however many years ago, and it's a thing that my friends and I it's like our own little mini escape, and it's gotten so huge now. I mean, these women, what's fascinating with me with that group of shows, and it bleeds into Vanderpump because Vanderpump has ended up being a spinoff of it, is the way that these people live their lives and the way that they actually take themselves so seriously and what's important to them. And it's complete opposite of 90% of the population, right? And what their concerns are and how much they'll sell themselves to be famous. It's fascinating to me.
I mean, in the end, is it all acting? I mean, is any of it actually real, you think?
So I think, if you're watching it, they're going to put you in certain situations. There's editing, there's storylines and all of that stuff. I think what was great about Housewives when it first started was that it wasn't with all the fame and the hoopla around it. And there wasn't, it was literally women who were married to incredibly wealthy men with families who were bored, and they got an opportunity for people to see kind of what the rich live like. And unfortunately, like every other reality opportunity with these stuff, and same thing happened with Love is Blind. Like when it first starts out, it's great because it's unknowing, it's unseeming, these people aren't famous yet, they weren't before. And now these women that have been doing it for 10, 15 years, right? Yeah. This is now their job. They know how to keep themselves relevant. And what I loved about Love is Blind is that the first season, really the second season, it was, again, these people weren't famous. They were coming on, and it was, you were getting a glimpse into a certain way of how things would be if you fell in love with someone that you'd never seen before. And now, though, it's like, it takes a turn because people want to be famous,
Do you watch Jersey Shore? Is that still on even?
It is still on. It's coming back. I used to a long time ago. I haven't watched any of the spinoff stuff. I don't think MTV is just, I have to tell you, it's just, it's terrible. So
I actually did it back in the day, watch one reality show. And I don't know if you've ever watched this one. It was called A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila.
Oh, yes. I loved those. I watched the Bret Michaels one. And
the only reason I'll be totally honest, the only reason I watched that show is because I thought it was hot that she was bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, this is hot. She's, going to put girls and guys. So, but then like, I think I found out that she was like racist or something. Like, didn't that come out like years later that I think it came out that she's like a really horrible person and racist and terrible.
Probably.
And so I was like, I watched the one show. It was a racist person.
That's when, like, it was funny. Like, those were funny because there was a lot of scripts. Like, they had like in Bret Michaels and like Flava Flav was those were all had like their nicknames were like Chardonnay and like all these like ridiculous. You didn't know their real names. I mean, it was all like built up that way.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to a lot of this stuff after so many seasons and stuff. It starts to take away from what it was, what made it great. So.
Well, Real World. I mean, like, I think everybody watched the first season of Real World, right?
I watched all those up until many years. I watched Road Rules. Road Rules was also on there.
Right. Okay.
The Challenge, which came off of a lot of that of Real World group, and and the dating shows are the new. The new thing for sure. I pulled away from the Bachelorette again. That got too much. Yeah. All
right. I want to hit you with a couple other shows. I don't know if you've seen these before we take a quick break and get to our anti-heroes. Do you watch Snowfall by any chance on FX?
I do not, but I've been hearing amazing things.
Yeah. So they just completed the last season. I'm not going to spoil it because it just came out a week ago. But I talked about this show the first week. I screwed up the main actor's name, as Michael knows. But anyway, I thought it was a show that went one season too long, but they ended it nicely, so they salvaged it at the end, unlike Game of Thrones, which went one season too long and botched the ending. But it's a really good show. So if anybody hasn't seen it, I recommend going back and watching it. But another show that I binged in the last 2 weeks, absolutely phenomenal, called Beef. This is on Netflix. Have you heard of this show? Have you watched it?
Heard of it. I've heard it's got like a 99% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
So it stars Ali Wong, who's a comedian, and Stephen Ewan, who was in. Did you watch Walking Dead? Were you a Walking Dead fan?
Yeah, that's where he's from. I was trying to remember where he was from.
Glenn. Okay. He was Glenn from Walking Dead, who was a very popular character, and a lot of people stopped watching Walking Dead when he got killed off. Did you watch it to the end?
Yeah,
or no?
that pretty much. It was that season because it was with
Negan.
With Negan.
A lot of people left that season.
Yeah.
I made it through. That season was tough, but it actually got better again in this spin-offs and whatever. But anyway, the two of them were absolutely phenomenal in the show. I can't recommend it enough. I flew through the 10 episodes.
It is 10. Okay. I thought it was less than that. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's 10, but it's really good. And I don't want to give too much away, but I will just say that there are twists and turns and great acting by the lead too. Michael, did you watch Beef? You're shaking your head. I said, did you watch it?
Yeah,
you did watch it?
I loved it. Yeah.
It was great, wasn't it?
Yeah. Every end of an episode is just like, wow, I got to keep going.
Right. It was a hard show to shut off.
I love that about shows if they're doing that, right? They keep you hooked.
And it's like midnight and you're like, oh my God, I got to go to sleep.
But you got to finish. That's like one of the best feelings, isn't it? Like, you're like, oh,
yeah.
I want to go to bed. Maybe if I watch like the first 20 minutes of the next one, I do that sometimes.
It's the best. All right, let's take a quick break and then we're going to get to our anti-heroes here. That's coming up next on Up Next with Adam the Bull.
Welcome, everyone, to Podcast 616, the official podcast of Earth 616. I am your host, Damon Royster, and I am inviting you to listen and subscribe to this Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast. On Podcast 616, we gather some of today's greatest comedians, writers, and actors to dive deep into all things Marvel, like comic book history and lore, all the interconnected superhero storylines, and of course, who's hot and who's not in the MCU. Honestly, why aren't you listening right now? You have the power to listen to Podcast 616. And as we always say, with great power comes even greater responsibility. Listen and subscribe to Podcast 616 wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
All right, we are back. It's Up Next with Adam the Bull. Holly Wetzel is my guest this week, and we're having a great time talking TV. It's now time for our top 5 anti-heroes in television history. Holly, you are my guest, so I'm going to start with you. You want to go 5 through 1 or 1 through 5? Whatever you want.
Yeah, let's do 5 through 1. We've read the list. Hold on. My list.
All right. I'll kill a little time if you need me to. This was tough. This was tough.
This was tough.
There's so many good anti-heroes. And these days, I would say more than 50% of the shows, the main character is an anti-hero.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's so much. So at first I was like, oh, I'll have some. There's a couple that were obvious choices, but breaking some ties for like between 4 to 8, I think was really tricky. But anyway, all right, start us off.
Yeah. So I would say 5, because you know what? They have flaws, and I think we all have flaws, and I think we relate, right?
Yeah.
So 5 for me is Marty Byrde.
Mm-hmm. Okay. From Ozark. Did
you watch Ozark?
What's funny about Ozark, I did watch Ozark. So, was it 4 seasons? I can't remember now, which was
something like that. Mm-hmm.
Let's say it was 4, which was a good. So, the first season to me was one of the greatest seasons of TV ever. I liked season 2, but I liked it a little less. And season 3, by the end, I was like, my only beef with the show is it never breathes. They went from one crisis to the next.
Yep.
And I wanted a little breathing time. So I did not watch season 4. Decided not to watch it. And then 6 months later or whatever it was, I mean, it was probably like a month or two ago where I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back and watch it now. And the only thing that stunk was that I had already heard that Ruth had been killed.
Oh.
So I kept waiting. You know, I knew it was coming. And of course, it didn't happen to the final, 20 minutes of the final episode.
Yeah.
So, but.
Which I was mad about. I wish she should not have. I was really mad about that.
Well, yes. And that's the thing. Like, she's one of the few characters that's not horrible on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Okay, so Marty Bird's a good choice. He's number 5.
Yeah. Are you going to do this with me or are you doing this after me?
No, I'll go after you.
All 5. Okay.
Or would you rather me go 5, 5, 4, 4?
I kind of want you to do the 5 and 5. Yeah.
So number 5 for me is Omar from The Wire.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, and some people think, well, he's not an anti-hero. He's a good guy. But yeah, in the end, he's a drug dealer.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, he may be a nice drug dealer,
but he's
a drug dealer. I mean, he's poisoning people. So,
right.
But I can't think of the actor's name. He obviously passed away in the last year or so. But that guy was just unbelievable. And he played that role so well. And in a way, there's so many anti-heroes right on The Wire. Because on The Wire, basically every character, cop or criminal, and there's a lot of blurred lines between cop and criminal in that show. They all have there's some good and bad in almost every character on that show. Nobody was completely clean, which made the show great. But anyway, so Omar is my number 5. All right, let's go to number 4.
That's a good one. Dexter Morgan.
I had to leave him off the list. It was close, but that's a good choice.
That's a close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Dexter. I put him up after Marty because I did not love this latest spinoff on Showtime. I don't know if you watched that.
I'll tell you what. It's funny because I liked the spinoff, but I hated like the last 2 or 3 seasons. Dexter went too long.
It went too long.
They went 100%. Too long.
Yep.
The show went off the rails the last couple of years.
Yeah, it did. But I loved the whole premise of him trying to take something and make it good as much as he could. You know, I don't know.
It was fascinating.
It was. It was very fascinating. It was very well done, and he was like he was perfect for it.
He played it really well, no doubt. He didn't make my list, but he was close. He was an honorable mention. Number 4 for me. I don't have to get into it too long because you already mentioned it. Marty Bird is number 4 for me.
Oh,
he's number 4. All right, number 3.
Number 3, I would Don Draper from Mad Men.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned him before.
Yeah.
Number 3 for me, and a lot of people will have this guy number 1, but he's number 3. And probably at the time I was watching the show, he would have been number 1, but he's been passed by 2 other people since then. But Tony Soprano, obviously James Gandolfini. To me, I mean, Gandolfini, it's one of those roles where like it's impossible to imagine anybody else playing that role besides James 100%. Gandolfini, right? Like I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I'm in the minority that I actually like how the show ended. Everybody got so up in arms about how Sopranos ended. Sopranos had one bad season, unlike The Wire or Breaking Bad or something like that. It did have that one season where he was in a coma, which I didn't thought that was an odd choice that season. But he was so great in that role. And even though he was, a really terrible person, really in all ways, I mean, he's a major criminal. He treated his wife like crap.
Right.
He cheated on her, but in the end, you rooted for him.
Yeah.
I mean, you did. I did. I think most people that watched the show did.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
he was, and I liked the Sopranos. It wasn't like, and I appreciated it very much. It was not one of like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with Sopranos and I watch it over and over again. So he was like right on the cusp of mine. One show that I absolutely loved, and for me, it's a show that I couldn't rewatch over and over like The Sopranos, is Cillian Murphy in Peaky Blinders.
Okay. Yes. What's funny to me is, in a way, those two shows have a lot of similarities, right? And yet, for whatever reason, and I don't know if I could. This is only from my experience. Most guys I know love The Sopranos and don't love Peaky Blinders. Most women I know love Peaky Blinders and don't love The Sopranos. I don't know what it is. They're both gangster shows.
Yeah.
Maybe because one's in England. I don't know what it is, but I feel like women like Peaky Blinders more and men like Sopranos more. And I don't know if that translates across the country, but just from my friends and people I know.
It's kind of fun you say that, because now that I think about it, like my mom loves it, my sister loved it, like my brother wasn't a big fan, nor was my dad, so it's kind of funny. So I didn't even really ever think about that until you said that. I loved it. I mean, I'm a big old movies fan. I'm a big like Turner Classic. I love originals. And
so do you watch a lot of the British shows like Call the Midwife and all those things or no?
No, I like the old school old movies like
just old. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
The old cinematography, that type of stuff. I like that stuff.
So is he number 2 for you?
So I like that era. I guess that's my point. I like that era of time and how it's represented, whatever. But yeah, so he would be my number 2. I loved him. I thought he was so good in it. I fell in love with him. I thought he was so great, but he also made a lot of really terrible mistakes. And you did watch it, right? You said?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched a couple of episodes, but it's in the show another show I never got into. I don't know what it was. You should
go back. I mean, I know, even though you're a man now that we're talking about this, but there's only like 4 or 5 episodes a season, and there's like 5 seasons. So it's a easy, straight watch.
Right.
So I think you'd like that. But
all right, that's your number. My number 2, of course, is Walter White from Breaking Bad, which, along with The Wire, are my 2 favorite shows of all time. We already talked about him in Your Honor, and obviously, he's great in that. But this was his, and he had been an actor for a long time, but this was obviously his breakout role. And to see the transformation from this nerdy science teacher to hardened drug dealer, where when he has the famous
he's
line,
my number 1. So that was my
I'm not surprised. It was a tough one. I think I may surprise you with what my number 1 is. So he's your number 1. I mean, I originally had him 1 and then I dropped him to 2, and you may be surprised who my number 1 is. But anyway, go. So why is he your number 1?
So that show, I just think, is one of the greatest shows ever in the history of television. Everything about it is so calculated and purposeful.
Yeah.
And I love that it ran for as long as it needed to, and it ended, and I thought it ended exactly the way that it should. I liked everything about it, just from hands down, and the way that he became so desperate, but then became obsessed with power and all of those things. Like, but you wanted him to continue to still make this money and do what he needed to do, even though he was already cured. He went through it. I mean, it was amazing. Right. I just thought he did fantastic. So he had no incredible real moral compass at the end.
No. And that show was basically perfect. It was the perfect amount of seasons.
Yep.
You're right. Everything is calculated. All right. I think you'll like my 1 choice, but you may be surprised. Of course, it's Jimmy McGill / Saul Goodman from the same show. Well, at least, but 2 shows, because you had Better Call Saul. You have Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And he did it for 12 years. And I think what's great about him is he does a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
But more than any of these other characters, I believe he's a good person at heart. And often does the right thing, even when he does shady things. And he does a lot of shady things.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I guess it's possible to argue he's not an anti-hero, but I think I mean, he's a criminal.
No, I would definitely argue him as one for sure. Yeah.
So
because he was up. I thought about my list, and then I thought I had Walter, so I was like, I'll stick with one or the other. But
right, I guess it is cheating a little bit to have 2 people from the same show, but I love them both.
How powerful is that show, though?
I mean, yes, and then to do a spinoff of it, and that show's an all-time great show, also.
Yeah. Yep.
And
it's amazing.
I mean, Better Call Saul, some of the scenes, the dialogue in that show was just top notch. So good. And the actress who played his wife, I don't know her name. I can't think of it offhand. And I don't remember seeing her ever in anything else.
Same.
And she was so incredible.
I don't know what her first name is, but it was
I don't know.
On the show, I think.
By the way, Bob Odenkirk was on a new show that just came out on AMC, and I didn't like it.
He's supposed to be on season 2 of
yes,
The Bear.
The Bear, yes. Did you like The Bear?
I haven't watched it. But I
give it a shot.
You liked it? You think it's worth it?
He was from Shameless.
Yeah.
Did you watch Shameless?
Parts of it. I never got into it. I tried.
It was good. It went off the rails. It went off the rails because the lead star, Emmy Rossum, went off the show, and they should have ended it that. But he was great in that. But he's really good. This is good. Takes a couple episodes to get into it, but I watched a couple episodes and I was like, And then a good friend of mine was like, you got to watch it again. And then I stuck with it and I liked it. So
yeah.
Anyway, all right, there you go. I think it's 2 great lists.
Great
well
lists.
done. Excellent job.
Absolutely.
All right. Quick break. We come back with fan questions to wrap this edition of Up Next.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of Producing While Asian. Join us in Season 2 for more conversations with actors, artists, producers, and more from Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond, every other Wednesday on the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, welcome back. It's Up Next with Adam the Bull. My guest is Holly Wetzel from the Orange is Oranger podcast, with my good buddy Tyvis Powell as well. And what do you guys got going on in your podcast this week?
Yeah, we had some draft. We had Tony Grossi on this week to talk some draft and career and Browns. And for that, we had Mary Kay Cabin on. We've had Jason Lloyd on. So we've had some really great lineup of guests. And we're going to have Bull on. So this is
anytime. I can't wait to be on with you guys. It'll be fun. So everybody
excited.
check it out. Everybody check it out.
Thank you. Yep.
Let's get to the fan questions if I can find my Twitter. Okay, here we go. I think Chase, the leader of Press Play Pods, asked a question. Okay, that's a sports question. Mark at Ohio Bourbon 1 tweets, are you a West Wing fan? Holly, are you a West Wing fan?
No, I never got into West Wing. I mean, I had watched it. I'm with you on the network stuff, Bull. It's not been a thing for me.
No, I never watched the West Wing. Obviously, most people that have liked it, but I was never something I was interested in watching. So no. My buddy Jonathan, who I worked with in Utica years ago, says, why is Seinfeld the most overrated show in the history of television? I'll hang up and listen. Jonathan, you're out of your mind. Seinfeld is one of the few great network TV shows.
It is one of the few.
Yeah.
I liked Seinfeld, and it's funny. Like I'm a big Larry David fan, so I loved Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes.
I haven't watched every single episode of Seinfeld, but what I have watched, I've always loved. And I was always Seinfeld moreover than was never a Friends person, by the way.
No, hated Friends. Hated Friends. Speaking of Larry David, did you hear my answer to the question? I don't know if I know you said you listened to the podcast, but I don't know if you listened to the whole thing. At the end of the first episode, I got a question was if you were in an episode of one show as yourself, what show would it be and what would your story arc be? Did you hear my answer to that or no?
No, I didn't hear
So
that.
I said that I would be on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And my story arc, I won't go into the whole, I did like a 5-minute spiel on it, but I'll give you the quick one, is that Larry David is driving through Cleveland, hears me on the radio, and I'm like ripping some fan and going off or whatever. And he's like, and since he's so obnoxious and tells people things that are inappropriate, he's like, I love this guy. I got to put him in my next movie as a sportscaster. He brings me to LA. I'm in the movie, but I piss off the whole cast because I'm really obnoxious. And the whole cast can't stand me. And his assistant's like, Larry, you got to fire this guy. We can't have him. He's making everybody nuts. And so Larry comes up to me and fires me. And I'm like, screw you, Larry. And I curse him out.
Like it totally happened.
Right? I feel like that could happen. That would 100%. Be funny. All right. Next, Don tweets, Sopranos Pine Barrens episode. What was the only food available? I don't remember the episodes by names. I'm sorry, Don. I can't think of that one. Glenn tweets, better TV villain, Newman or Ramsey Bolton? I mean, how do you compare Newman is like...
You can't.
Ramsey Bolton
was it like a terror. Like he
cut off his penis.
Right. You had to say it.
Oh my God.
No,
Newman was just a pain in the ass. I mean, there's a big difference there. Ramsey Bolton is like one of the worst characters ever.
He's awful.
Let's see. Okay. Chase, who is the leader of Press Play Pod, says, best sports TV series.
Ooh.
Best sports TV series.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I what was that show with The Rock where he's an agent?
Yeah, that's the first one I was thinking of.
I liked that, but then I stopped watching it. I thought it got a little crazy.
I thought the first season was really good.
Yeah, and then it just went on. Why am I'm like not even thinking of any sports TV shows?
It's not I know. It's so funny.
There's not a lot of good sports TV shows. Ballers. Yes.
Yeah.
Like they made a TV show out of a league of their own, and I watched the first episode. It was so awful. It felt like a network TV show that I couldn't watch it.
I was actually going to ask you if you've seen that because I saw that came out recently.
Yeah. No, I feel like there's so many sports movies that I like.
You know what I liked? Friday Night Lights. I would say it would be a good
one. Now that's funny that you brought that up. It's funny that you brought that up because all of a sudden, like 6 months ago, I had never watched that show. I read the book when it first came out. It was a great book. I saw the movie. Did you see the Friday Night Lights movie?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great movie, right? And so but I never had interest in the show, mostly because by the time it came out, I was like, network TV sucks. I'm not watching it. And I never watched it. For whatever reason, about 6-8 months ago, I decided to give it a shot. And I watched the first season, and I liked it. But by the end of the first season, I was like, first of all, it's so ridiculous. Two things. Number one, as I said before, every woman on that show is like the most gorgeous woman you've ever. Like, where is this high school where every single girl is drop dead gorgeous?
Right.
So, and then it was like, Booby Miles is on steroids. By the end of the episode, it's all fine. Next episode, somebody's beating their husband or beating their wife. It was like all these huge problems, and they go away by the end of the episode.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, some of it gets a little ridiculous.
Silly, but
I just looked up, by the way, so Friday Night Lights on here. Ted Lasso is considered. Yeah, I mean.
Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso. Yes.
All American. So that's a network show, and it's on Netflix though, and I really like it. It's definitely.
I don't know that show.
It's about two different areas of in LA, a really affluent area and an inner city area, and football teams that play each other. And this kid ends up playing from the inner city team to team in Beverly Hills, and it's his experience of doing that. It's pretty good. It's a super easy watch. It's a great binging. Like if I'm cleaning or doing something, and I'll stick it on. It's
right.
It's one of those.
Yeah.
So I watched that. And then Eastbound and Down. I have. Oh
my God! How can I forget about Eastbound and Down? I would say, of those, I would say Ted Lasso is definitely the best. Mm-hmm. Eastbound and Down is number 2. That was a great show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was. Is he an anti-hero? I mean, I guess he is too in a way.
Good, yeah. In that, Mm-hmm.
He was such a scumbag, but you're rooting for him.
Oh yeah, 100%. So there we go.
That's a good one. But all right, let's see. I thought I had. Do I have one more? Who is Gorbs tweets? Who is the best character in The Wire? To me, it was Omar, but there's so many good ones. Do you have a favorite?
So so it's funny with The Wire. I just started watching The Wire this year.
Oh, really?
I'd never watched it.
Well, it's funny. I didn't watch it until like 3-4 years ago. So it was a while for me too. And then I couldn't stop watching. So where are you at this point?
I'm only like 4 or 5 episodes in. So
yeah.
My a toxic trait of mine, whether or not this is good or not, I skip with shows. So like I don't just watch one, and depending for the most part.
Right, you bounce around.
I have like 4 or 5 shows I watch at once, and then I get excited because then I watch one episode and watch another episode or whatever. So I'm like 4 or 5 episodes in. I just started that like not that long ago. So.
Well, that'll be an enjoyable ride because that show never got bad either, and it was 5 seasons, I think, and it was really great. All right, I think that's it. That was actually a lot of questions, considering I forgot to ask until like 10 minutes before we were gonna. What the April? I Think You Should Leave or a Black Lady sketch show. I don't think I've seen either of those. Do you know those shows?
I've heard I Think You Should Leave.
Yeah,
I've not heard a Black Lady sketch show. No,
I don't know that show. Sorry, April. We can't give you an answer there. Holly, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. I look forward to being on your podcast. It was great catching up with you.
Thank you.
Michael,
this was awesome.
Michael, as always, great job producing the show. We will be back in 2 weeks on Up Next with Adam the Bull. See you, everybody.